Don't you have a part-time job to be late at? That was the hilariously cutting question Mark Consuelos asked on a recent episode of Live with Kelly and Mark, directing it at 18-year-olds who still go trick-or-treating. His tone, teasing. His smile, that of a dad who's probably had to answer the door one too many times for a 6-foot-tall teenager in a hoodie and a paper mask. And yet, behind the playful jab lies something deeper, something all of us wrestle with when the leaves start to turn and the Halloween aisle in Target becomes a maze of nostalgia. When are we too old for magic? Let's be honest, trick-or-treating is a sacred childhood ritual. The giddy anticipation of knocking on a stranger's door and being rewarded with candy, free, glorious, sugar-packed candy, is a kind of miracle that adult life rarely offers. You don't need to earn it. You don't need a resume or even eye contact. You just say, trick or treat, and someone hands you a miniature Snickers. If that's not a metaphor for everything we miss about being a kid, what is? So, when Mark Consuelos, in his charming, dad joke way, asked if 18-year-olds had a part-time job to be late at, he wasn't just poking fun. He was lighting the fuse on a debate as old as Halloween itself. When does one outgrow the costume and candy routine? The tricky territory of teenage trick-or-treating. 18 is a strange age. You're legally an adult, but you probably still live at home. You might vote and pay taxes, but you also might sleep in a twin bed with Star Wars sheets. You're old enough to enlist in the military, but you still get acne. It's a time of contradiction, awkwardness, and slow transformation. So can we really blame an 18-year-old for wanting to squeeze one last butterfinger out of childhood? Maybe Mark's joke was a loving nudge to say, hey, grow up a little. But maybe it also triggered a tiny rebellion in all of us, because truthfully, most adults wouldn't mind dusting off the capes and going door to door again. We just don't because, well, we're afraid of being that guy. The creepy adult with a plastic pumpkin bucket and no child in sight. What we lose when we grow up. There's a universal grief we all experience but rarely name, the mourning of childhood rituals. One day, without ceremony, you just don't go trick-or-treating anymore. You age out, like a discontinued product. You watch from the porch, handing out candy, silently judging teens in last-minute zombie makeup while secretly wondering if anyone would notice if you threw on your old Batman costume and hit a few houses on the other side of the neighborhood. In calling out older teens who still participate, Consuelos isn't wrong, but he isn't entirely right either. There's something beautiful about a teenager clinging to wonder. Yes, they might have a shift at Dunkin' tomorrow morning. But tonight, under the soft orange glow of jack-o'-lanterns, they just want to be a kid again. And don't we all? The costume crisis. Let's not pretend trick-or-treating is only about candy. It's also about transformation. A cowboy, a vampire, a cheerleader from the zombie apocalypse. Costumes let us escape ourselves, and for teenagers in the uncomfortable throes of becoming, that escape might be more necessary than ever. They're navigating high school politics, app exams, college applications, and social media anxiety. If a $15 Spirit Halloween outfit and a pillowcase full of M&Ms helps them forget that for a night, is that really so bad? And sure, maybe some of them are just in it for the Reese's. But maybe, just maybe, that plastic mask is the closest thing they've had to joy in a month. Trick-or-treating, a shared language. There's something deeply communal about Halloween. For one night, we knock on strangers' doors, smile at each other, compliment costumes, and share sweets. That's rare in modern life, where we often avoid eye contact with neighbors and can go months without learning the name of the guy who lives 2 doors down. So if a few 18-year-olds want to participate, awkward height and all, maybe that's less about immaturity and more about connection. They're not asking for much. Just a mini Kit Kat and a little belonging. The spirit of the season. Mark Consuelos' joke was, of course, just that, a joke. But as with all good comedy, it hits a nerve. Because growing up isn't a switch you flip. It's more like peeling layers, slowly, clumsily, often with resistance. Halloween gives us a rare gift, permission to be someone else. Or to be ourselves without the usual pressure to have it all figured out. Maybe the kid in the ghost face mask is really a scared high school senior applying to colleges he can't afford. Maybe the tall fairy princess is struggling with her first heartbreak. Maybe that too old kid is just trying to hang on to something pure for a little longer. And maybe that's okay. So, what's the age limit? Is there an age where trick or treating stops being cute and starts being questionable? Sure, but it's not a number, it's an attitude. If you show up at the door with joy, creativity, and respect, and wear a costume, come on, most people will hand you candy. If you show up looking bored and entitled, muttering, trick or treat, like it's a tax audit, then yeah, you probably should have just gone to your shift at CVS. But let's not forget, every adult at some point wishes they could rewind the clock. And Halloween, for all its cobwebs and corn syrup, is one of the few times we can pretend. Whether you're 8, 18, or 38. So maybe Mark Consuelos was right. Maybe 18-year-olds do have part-time jobs to be late at. But maybe, just for one night, we let them be late. Let them chase the feeling. Let them hold on. Because if we can't occasionally ignore the rules and chase a little joy, what's the point of growing up at all?